Hi, Jennifer. Welcome to my 20th Recovering Through Grief Chronicles podcast. My name is Annie Blue, and today is November 17th, 2023. This podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Our nervous system requires safety. It's not optional. It is obligatory. Undergoing surgery at a younger age can have emotional side effects, as it is a significant and potentially traumatic experience. Here are some potential emotional side effects. Anxiety. Those undergoing surgery earlier than usual may experience increased anxiety both before and after surgery. Fear of the unknown and concerns about pain or complications can contribute to anxiety. Fear and distress. Surgery can be a scary experience. There can be the experience of overwhelm and or distress instigated by the sights, sounds, and unfamiliar environment of the hospital. I've definitely experienced that. Sadness or grief. Those undergoing surgery may feel sad or grieve over the loss of their normal routines, activities, or physical abilities. They may also feel a sense of loss if surgery alters their appearance and creates further physical complications. Body image issues. Surgery can impact body image, especially if it alters their physical appearance. They may struggle with accepting their bodily changes, leading to self-esteem issues. Social isolation. Recovery can lead to feelings of isolation and limited interaction with family or peers. This may result in loneliness and a sense of being left behind. Post-traumatic stress. Flashbacks, nightmares, and heightened anxiety related to the surgery experience may occur. It is important to obtain emotional support for coping with the emotional side effects. My next guest, Jennifer Kaufman, is a life coach with style. She uses her skills as an astrologer and an artist to help clients find the life they are looking for. Her soul, S-O-U-L, purpose on this planet is to nurture and nourish others through beauty. She provides her clientele with what it takes to really get to know themselves and create the transformation it takes to live authentically on, in, and around oneself. Jennifer shares it is hard to feel out of place when you are always aware of what makes you comfortable. Her own trials and tribulations on the search for comfort resulted in a lifetime of experience that taught her about her own authenticity. As a result, she embodies a great desire and know-how to provide everyone with the feeling and means of transformation for accessing a sustainable state of being absolutely, uncompromisingly comfortable with oneself and in one's surroundings. By identifying your astrological blueprint and your physique, she can teach you how to L-I-F-E, life, and L-I-V-E, live a whole, authentic life. Jennifer will share her experience of a hysterectomy at the young age of 30 years old, which was a significant trauma experience for her. Grief, sadness, loss, frustration, and the overpowering emotions and physical effects to her identity, as well as to her identity as a woman, created a long, healing, learning crisis journey for her. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited about this.
Thank you, Amy. I'm honored to be here.
So when I asked you to share your earliest experience with grief, your response was not to the earliest, but the most impactful experience in your lifetime with grief. Please elaborate.
So I was 30 when I had a hysterectomy, and I had previously had 2 surgical experiences, having C-sections with both of my children. And basically at that point, I ended up having 5 abdominal surgeries, which was huge. And the end result being I had a hysterectomy and a oophorectomy, which means my ovaries were also removed. So I went from being a 30-year-old young mother with 2 young kids. My youngest was 2 at that time, to being a woman in menopause. And I mean, it was surgical sort of alteration to that point is very abrupt, and there's no grace period into it. You don't ease into it like a natural process, right? So I went straight from being a mom with all the energy in the world. Nothing was wrong with not nothing, but few things are wrong with my body. My energy levels were great, to being a mom of 2 children who do not stop, still need to eat, food needs to get on the table, and I have surgical recoveries to go through. I have mental, anxieties and stuff and things I had to deal with that no one was understanding. The kids don't understand for sure. You don't need to tell them. They're not ready to hear it. And my husband just is on autopilot anyway. So he said, he doesn't really get it. So you go from one person to another in a day, and nobody can really guide you into that experience.
Wow. That's a biggie, just to go through something like that where it is interesting to really think about that you can be somebody one day and change so drastically within 24 hours. I mean, that's a lot. So trauma and stress trigger dissolution, which can also be called evolution in reverse. Does this fit as a description of how this felt to the wholeness of you?
Yes, I'll say that the dissolution part took time. You do change from having those physical organs, but your body doesn't really adapt to it until you get used to it. It probably took me an entire year to adjust to hormones to get my body back to some sort of understanding how it was going to function going forward. And I would call that a flow. And it was a flow disruptor because my normal flow wasn't there. So finding the new flow was really I had to dissolve the old flow and work into a new one, which was interesting. It also dissolved how I operated in the mother stage of life, because I went from mother to a wise woman, basically. Like, you're supposed to just, when you're in menopause, you're a wise woman, right?
Right.
So I went from, having the foundations of my physical 30-year-old body taken into someone who is old enough to be in menopause. So I had to dissolve how I worked as a mother and work as a wise woman. And that evolution you had to go past what was and learn what happened in the future. And there's no guidebook for it. So it was interesting. It was interesting.
Yeah, it'd be neat for you to write a book on exactly what you just described, because it probably happens to so many, that especially hysterectomies. That's such a biggie, to alter your female organs. That really is.
So many people do it without understanding what might happen afterwards. I've talked to a lot of people with hysterectomies. I would honestly equate how aware and awake you are to how much you experience when you have I'm very aware of my body, and I was even before this process. But if you're not really paying attention to your body, the hysterectomy, people just go on with their life as normal and they don't notice the difference. So depending on your level of awareness is what it affects. But yeah.
Wow. So how did the early on hysterectomy affect your social engaging and communications with those around you at the time? As we just said, when hormones are altered and affected, the induced trauma outcome can be far-reaching. And the reason I really want to know more about that is just because I had my thyroid removed, and it really changed so many different things within me. So that's why I was like, if you can elaborate on, did it actually affect the way that you were socially out there or within your family system as this was happening?
Absolutely. As you said, there's trauma with it, and being a young mother, being you've got to take your children places, but you don't feel like it. You're tired, you're hurting, and in my case, it took me over a year to find the hormone replacement therapy, because at 30, you really do need to go back on it, because your body is not ready to be in menopause. It's not ready to remove all of those hormones. So estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, there's that entire cascade that works. I was put on all of those things immediately, which wasn't the way to do it. So I was put on synthetic things, and they would cause me to feel like I had a hand gripping the back of my neck. It would mess with other levels of the body, because it's really hard to replace something the body does naturally, which is why I would sincerely tell anyone, unless this is absolutely necessary, do not have a hysterectomy. I don't care. Again, medically necessary. I am not a doctor. I am not telling you to do something. But if I want you to go into your gut and say, do I need this, or is this just convenient? Because if it's convenient, trust me, it's not convenient later. All the hormone replacement therapies that you have to go through, the rebalancings, the osteoporosis, the things that can happen to women in menopause can now happen to you, and you have more life to live before you get to that period. So it takes more action for you to have a hysterectomy to balance it back out again than it does to not have it and figure out how to help the root causes, what you think you need one for.
Right. Wow.
So empathically, I'm an empath, and so I could feel the horror of people. Oh my God, she was 30 and had a hysterectomy. I would hate to have that happen to me. And you can feel people are like, oh, I'm so glad that didn't happen to me. And I mean, yes, that you want them, they can tell that you're not well. They can tell that you're tired, and and then you've got people bringing you food that you wouldn't eat. They want to help. But it's not the type of food that would help my body heal, because I knew what I needed. So it was just interesting. And, you can tell people want to help. They want to help by giving you something, and then back away from the situation, because it is a little too close to home, right? Because this could affect any woman out there. And then you have menopause symptoms at 30. And that's a difficult thing, because nobody at 30 is going through it unless they've done what you've done, right? So I ended up writing. I did write a book, but I didn't publish it. But I did an entire Instagram page called @Genopause that walks through the stages of menopause and how you can recognize when you're going to be in it, and the ways that you can get into menopause surgically or chemically or naturally. Imagine that.
Yay. That's the best way, of course.
Yeah. So, and again, I really truthfully would not encourage anyone to get a hysterectomy unless it is absolutely necessary. And this includes anyone, especially my heart goes out to the transgender people, but do not do this to your natural body, because if you're having struggles with feelings before you have a hysterectomy, you're going to have more. There's no balancing of something that is naturally there. I would encourage you to work with your feelings and emotions and structures, leaving your body intact if at all possible, because those functions do not just affect one part of your body. It's not just, it's a cascade of hormones that are affected, and your body's ability to produce things. So if there's one thing I can say is, dig deep, look into your gut, only have a hysterectomy if absolutely necessary, and a oophorectomy, because you're removing 2 vital organs at that point.
I don't know if I've ever heard anybody saying they had the oophorectomy. I don't think I've always heard people say hysterectomy, but I haven't heard anybody talk about that.
Well, a hysterectomy is your uterus, and the oophorectomy is your ovaries.
Right.
So I had an internal scar tissue condition that all of my organs were knitted up together. Wow. I was literally bound up inside my body. And so they had taken them apart and they bound up again. So they did the oophorectomy because my ovaries were attached to my bowel, and they were attached to my abdominal wall. So every time I would have a bowel movement, it would pull an organ. It was kind of a surgical mess. But but again, the ovaries are important. And a lot of times when people have hysterectomy, they do not remove, because hysterectomy is only the uterus. Right. So, yeah.
Because I haven't ever heard, I mean, not that I've known a lot. I have known like 2 others that were your age. And one did not have any issues but again, she might not have truly been in her body. And the other one definitely had a lot. I mean, I know it affected her thyroid, everything.
Oh, yes.
And she was working as a NIC NIC nurse, with the babies. So it was, it was a high stress job and a lot of on her feet. And yeah, it really kind of rattled everything for her. So that's why when you were talking about this, I was like, wow, that is such a biggie to consider when anybody has to go through that. And it's also like going against your body, really. It's, it's not the organic time for your body to get to go through its organic process. So.
That's correct. And you're dealing with a flow that is introduced and not when your body needs it. So you'll take, 90 milligrams of a thyroid tablet when in the morning, but that's not necessarily when you need the thyroid, when your body accesses it. And that's what causes all those strange things to happen in the body, where you'll store it because your body's like, I'm going to need this later. And that includes fat. And there's so many things that this does that changes how your body functions. Mm-hmm. And the unnatural supply of a synthetic substance, because it isn't coming from your body, it's coming from outside of you, is hard to regulate. And some people find it harder than others. And I will say that I have found in myself and my work that the more surgeries someone has had, the more broken you are, the more broken your meridians are inside of you, your flow pattern. So each time you disrupt the flow pattern, you become a little more complicated. And it becomes a little harder to treat you. And then this is, again, my experience, but it doesn't mean you can't find it. It just means you have to list all the things and find where the flow is broken. And your body will remember. My body knows I had a uterus. It still knows where it is. It's still in the meridian functioning, but it's a phantom uterus. It can't react the same way as if it had a real one, right? It can't physically make a hormone for me anymore. It can't physically provide the function that it used to, but my body kind of thinks it can. So it'll run through the cascade, and that's where the block comes. Do I have enough hormone to run through that? Do I, so.
And so many people that I've heard have issues with surgeries. It is more the scar tissue. Tissue. It's obnoxious what happens. That seems to cause them much more trouble than, the surgery at first.
It is. And, I was, I did listen to my gut. I had some, and I know this is part of your next question, but I did listen to my gut, and I did choose to have the hysterectomy, even though at the last minute, my mother said, you don't have to do this, but she didn't have a reason why. She didn't say nobody could tell me what I could do instead. And so I didn't have an option. I didn't know any better at that point in time. So I've had to grieve greatly over my decision to actually do this surgery now that I know so much more. But you know what? You have to forgive yourself for that. That's the point I was. That's who I was at that point. And it led me to so many things. I cannot discount all that I've learned because of what I've gone through and how it might help other people. There's always a reason, right? So I'm a vessel. So this happened to me. Let's do the best we can with it, right? But
so that is well, that's not quite my next question. Do you recall experiencing difficulties in the regulation of your state of behavior, such as hypervigilance, anxiety, distractibility, impulsivity, tantrums, or hyperarousal due to the shock to your system?
Yes, all of that. It was a deluge of feelings afterwards, especially when going through the treatment with different types of estrogen therapies and other hormones, whatever was the combination of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone that they were trying at that point in time. And so I finally got to the point where I didn't listen to them anymore. I chose to listen to my body, and I took them one at a time. And I said, okay, this one's doing this, this one's doing this, this one's doing this. The testosterone made me angry. Testosterone gave me like I got to get through this. And I had to get to the point where I had to realize, do I need this at all? Do I need a little bit? Where does that count? And where in the cascade is it fitting? So I did find over time that I stopped taking testosterone. But when I started getting muscle pulls, I started taking it again, because that was how it was affecting me long term. But I had to know the effects of the testosterone to get there. I had anxiety out the wazoo. Completely. I've had it for 22 years, had to deal with it. And it's a ungrounded, baseless feeling that comes from nowhere. It's like, wait, where is my foundation? It's not as intact as it should be. And that solely depends on how my hormonal levels are at that point in time, how much rest I got, how much water have I had, did I have the right food? But all those balances come into play, and I'm constantly having to be aware of the fact that it's okay. you're not going to find that balance. It's okay.
Yay.
You're going to do the best you can. You're going to come up with these coping mechanisms. You're going to, make sure you've had that water, do the things proactively that you can, and then respond with what you need to when you figure it out. So anxiety, distractibility. Wow. I mean, two little kids worried about the physical body feelings and the pain and they need you to pick them up and you can't. So you're like, how can I make this happen differently? And yeah, I didn't have tantrums. I'm not prone to anger per se, but the testosterone would lead to feelings of deep tension more than tantrums, if that makes any sense. And hyperarousal was an interesting thing. So I'm a Venus person, so I'm Libra rising with a Taurus sun. So I'm very sensual and sexual, and I had no connection to that area of my body for at least 2 years.
Wow.
And that's not good for marriage. That's not good for anybody, because being in connection with that creative part of your body, with the sensuality, sexuality, I did not get hyper aroused until later in life, when I managed to learn to balance myself. Now it's so much a part of my being, and I don't know how this relates to other people, but it's so much a part of who I am that I can breathe and get turned on. Because my arousal has shifted how it is turned on, right?
Oh, wow.
Which, again, is something that is not something most people understand. But I mean, I can literally feel in my gut, like Joanna was talking about. I can feel it, and I can breathe into it and be like, oh, yeah. But it took a long time to get there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, and also here, when it's talking about the hyperarousal, it's also discussing the shock, like truly looking at, the factor of shock when we go through something like that, because it literally does, affect every part of us.
Any surgery can create that. In my case, I had 5 on top of each other. So I think I was past shock by the 5th time. And I had my coping mechanism sort of in place to help lift the laundry basket and figure out how to comfort a child when I couldn't pick them up. And so, yeah, I mean, the shock was there, but for me, the shock didn't really come until I allowed myself to experience the grief. Mm-hmm. You don't really think about it as, like, I don't need any more children right now. I don't need to worry about not being able to have another one, until 5 years down the line, you're thinking, oh my goodness, what if I wanted another one? What if I could have another beautiful little being spring into this world? And then you start to go, oh yeah. And then it becomes a shock. Like, wow, I just can't do that anymore.
Right. Right.
It's not physically possible. I can't even think my way into it.
Well, and it's so wild when it's funny. We can be fine about it until we can't have something. And,
that's right.
And especially something as endearing and great as another child, because, if motherhood is your nice gig and you really enjoy raising children, it's a biggie. It's just to not have that choice. Yeah. So, and I came from a family of 7 kids. So my mom, so I can totally identify with how fun that is to have a big family.
Yeah. Yeah. But the choice is taken away from you, it is a shock. It is a shock to finally come to that point. Right. It's also a shock to be in the physical body and realize you can't do things physically anymore. Now, again, I don't know if this happens to everyone, but I lost my ability. Like, I can't go skiing anymore because something will pop. Doesn't matter how well I take care of myself, I will hurt myself. And I did it a couple times until I was like, wow, man, I can't do this anymore. I'm only 52.
Boo.
I think I figured that out 2 years ago. So I was 50, but still, I mean, people ski until they're as old as they want to be, right?
Yes, and especially if it's a love of yours and it's everything that it titillates in our being to get to do something like that, especially snow. It's just so beautiful. So yeah, that would be huge. Well, so your hysterectomy was at a time when the attentiveness to alternative health wasn't very known or mainstream. What was this like for you, most especially with the innate, insightful, intuitive abilities you have that you referred to as, oh, now I'm not going to be able to say it, and I totally practiced it,
synesthesia.
Synesthesia.
Yes.
In your bio on your website is where you talked about that. So, and that happened as a result of the surgery, right?
No, I had it before.
Okay.
So it's basically a senses that get crossed. So the surgery did not cause my senses to become crossed. However, I haven't been tested for this. There's very few scientific methods that say you have a synesthesia, but I cross my see and my feel. So if I close my eyes and touch something, I can get an impression inside I can see something, right? And if I see something, I can get a feeling about it. I don't have to touch it, but I can get an empathic feeling about it. Those are the way my wires are crossed. Now, when you have a synesthesia and you go through these things, sometimes the wires get crossed in a different pattern, right? So I've disrupted more of my patterns every time I've had a surgery. So my synesthesia shows up very interestingly. And it did change after I had the hysterectomy.
It's fascinating. When did you actually first notice it, the synesthesia?
The synesthesia? Well, yeah. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was until I was probably in my 20s. And I don't have the one where you could pop an M&M and tell you that it's yellow. I have one that I can hug someone and tell them that their aura is yellow. So I get and it can't be validated. These are you can validate the people with the yellow, but you can't validate mine, right? I can't prove to you that I'm seeing yellow when it happens. And you don't know that you have a yellow aura, right? So it becomes another unseen thing. You're like, well, am I really experiencing this? But when I had the hysterectomy, I shifted kind of from that second chakra into the fourth chakra. So I do everything from the heart now. Wow. Not everything, but the second chakra stopped working as much. So it took a little while to kind of regrow those synapses.
But heart sensing would be lovely.
It is with a good person. It's not so great when the lesser elevated emotions are in play.
Mm-hmm. So how do you experience that when it's lesser, when it's lower chakra, darker energies? How does that feel in your heart then?
It does create fear. And I have to work with the fear. The first is, so I used to think my first experience was anger, but it's not, it's fear. So I jump into, and then there's that whole foundational anxiety. Am I safe feeling? And it makes me feel unsafe until I can identify, and I have to become aware of it, identify where it's coming from. If it's someone else's feeling, sometimes I can feel an aura brush by me. Sometimes people are just sad or mad or angry, and you can feel it and you're like, whoa, what was that? But so I do spend a lot of time alone. I do try to remove myself. I do try not to touch people that I know or have experienced previously as having an emotion that wasn't pleasant.
That makes so much sense to safeguard yourself like that. Well, there is a lot now online about that. I'm not going to say it right again.
Synesthesia.
Yes, he said it so beautifully. The one guy I listened to, and I was like, okay, I'm going to remember that. But it is interesting because people can really do a lot of sight in color. With so much of what they're seeing and know. Yeah, it's tuning into your sensory perceptions in such a significant and neat way. It was fun to get to hear about the different versions of it that are out there. So if anybody listening wants to read, I highly recommend it because it's just kind of fun to know about. And then I have a feeling people may start recognizing ones around them that may have that. So because it's actually surprisingly, there's a lot of people that do have it.
There are, and it's an awareness factor. People have it. So, for instance, in my business color, when I wardrobe someone, I can see and feel if the vibration of the color on them is correct. Like, I can't wear pattern in certain patterns because it makes me all jangly.
Mm-hmm.
So I can sense from that synesthesia, or who knows, maybe I could naturally sense it. I don't know the difference between my synesthesia and my regular self because they're the same thing. But I can, that's what the beauty of my work is. I can see the resonance and frequency of color, light, pattern on a person with their vibration, light, and frequency. And you can see when something meshes. It's just fabulous. But it's something that people don't know about, and they might be able to feel it. Some people can feel it. I work with the Color Designer International group, and they're fantastic. They learn color. They learn the frequency. They learn the patterns of stuff that goes together. It's an excellent group of people. And if you need a style consultant, please go through CDI because it is the baseline of color interpretation of wardrobe.
Love it. I love it. That's great. Because it's one person that I'm taking a biology, a trauma course from. She only wears purple. It's all she ever wears is like a deep purple. It's so cute.
Well, in the appearance sort of systems, they usually take, if they really are working with a person. So I do mine a little differently. I take it a step further. So they use eye color, hair color, and skin tone. So basically you'd be a warm, a cool, a neutral, leaning one or the other direction, right? So it's easy to tell someone, well, it's easy. I've been doing this a long time. It's easy to identify that for a person, then send them a direction of the color palette. But I take it a step further and I use your zodiac also, because my work is about wholeness. It's about bringing that astrology star unseen energy into this clay of the body and bringing them together and helping them work together as a whole. So just because it's unseen doesn't mean that color's not affecting you. It doesn't mean that light source isn't coming down and, interacting with what you're wearing, with your energy, with, there's so much to it. But
I love it because I just think, my goal here is to bring more and more teaching and inspiration to people. And I love inviting in this kind of a therapy access that is so available to people that they can use and in a way that they had no idea. So I'm really, really grateful you're here. So according to Dr. Stephen Porges, safety is the stage setter for all other human functions. There is something called the science of safety. He states when we feel safe, the brainstem receives sensations, and then that info gets relayed to other parts of the brain for processing. If I am not safe, it gets suspended there. Then one doesn't have the ability to make sense of the world in a coherent fashion. Within your comfort parameters, can you speak of the feeling of unsafety that got triggered for you due to the hysterectomy? Did you comprehend that your entire nervous system or partially part of your nervous system was experiencing unsafety? How did you define it emotionally for yourself?
So safety was huge. It was a foundational issue for me. I found over time that the ebb and flow of the hormonal replacement therapy directly affected how safe I felt and the balance of that. And the unfortunate part of that was if I was more stressed, used up more energy, being more active, I would use more of the hormone and then have less available since it wasn't, it's delivered on a not natural way. That would create even more feelings of unsafety, anxiety, and all of those things that you can't express to anyone and no one understands why you feel that way. People aren't in the same stage of life that you are. And so you might be a mother, but you're dealing with stuff that a 65 to 75-year-old woman's going through. Yes. And so that causes another feeling of, well, they're going to go do this 5-mile long hike and I'm only going to make it 2 miles. How do I join this process? How do I stay doing things active with my friends? How do I perform activities? Like I can't drink a lot of alcohol. My body can't take it. I can't go party like some people did, or, there's just so you don't feel safe where you're going and then you tend to not go. Or you tend to say, oh, they think I'm going to be lame. And I mean, I have my children, they laugh at me. They're like, oh, mom's going to do something and she's going to get hurt, because I do tend to have things like pull or pop. And I'm a super athletic person and I go with it with everything I got. I play, I have fun, and I end up hurting myself. And so the story is that mom's going to hurt herself, And so then I start telling myself that story, which makes me feel unsafe, which is a precursor to hurting something before I do it. So just noticing the stories that other people are telling about how they're explaining what's going on with me, what I assimilate, how I take that into my real life. And it did encourage some wonderful coping mechanisms. Like, I know that I cannot go out in the sun. I know that I need a hat. I know I need to protect myself from, I'm going to get sunburned, right? Has nothing to do with hysterectomy, but that's a coping mechanism that I developed. So, but part of what did happen to me with the hysterectomy is I no longer can control my internal temperature. I get hot so easily and I can't turn it off. Whether it's hypothalamus, thalamus, whatever it is, It is not regulating properly. And the hormones that I take do not help that. I dislike being hot more than anything in the world.
Oh, bless your heart.
It's like,
I just had to open my window to start this today, so I can identify. Yeah.
And this isn't even menopause type of hot flashes, which I went through 3 times through different sorts of medicines that I took. This is an uncomfortable change in emotion, and I can get hot. I can do an activity and I can get hot. Like the other day we were working with anger. Whoosh, it comes out and then I get freezing. It's just a response, a hormonal response that you can't regulate anymore.
That's
and that makes you feel unsafe because you're like, what do I do if the sun is out? It's 95 degrees. I just got angry at something and now I'm 5,000 degrees and I can't. Am I going to spontaneously combust? Which is what it feels like. You know you're not going to, but you're like, I can't do this. I can't be here. I can't, you know. And so I have to take precautions. I have to travel with extra water. I have to take my rose water spray. I have to make sure I only wear natural fabrics and no synthetics to keep that in. I have to work with the color palette and wear the lighter ones that reflect the light back out instead of the darker ones which absorb it and keep it next to my body. Wow. I have to use lighter colors in decorating so that I keep myself at a cooler sort of equilibrium than most people need to be. Most people are in the woods with warm woods. They're and with darker fabrics, absorbable stuff. And here I am. I'm in the middle of Pike National Forest, and I look like I'm next to the beach. I mean, but it works for me. So.
Yay. Well, I mean, I'm glad you found the coping mechanisms, but that would be a drag and more just because it's like it immediately takes you out of comfort. You know, you're comfortable that you've talked about because you're in a situation and you know it's coming on and you know it's separating you from the activities and the people that you want to have an endearing time with. And here you are stuck feeling hot. So, yeah.
And they're not hot. So, they're, you know, they want to go on vacation and they want to go to a tropical island. And you think, I can't think of anything worse, you know, but I want to be with my family and I want to do this. So I go and then I suffer.
You go. Okay. So you can still go to the beach, but gosh, what do you do to stay under an umbrella and keep as cool?
Stay in the shade. Yeah.
Oh, it's such
it alters what I could physically accomplish in the sun. Yes, for sure.
Wow. So Viktor Frankl states that between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. Some refer to this space as a pause time. It is vital to the replenishment of our nervous system. Is this something that you are aware of? And do you offer your nervous system pause time to make a decision?
I do now. It took a long time to learn that. So I'm an astrologer. That's my main method of divination. It's not divination, but it's, I don't even know a good way to put it. Astrology, ascertaining a blueprint that gives you a map of your life that could happen that way. Human design is the same type of map from a different perspective in a different modality, which I use as a correspondence and complementary one.
Oh, cool. I didn't know you used that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I would never consider myself a human design practitioner, but I do study it. I'm interested in it, but it's never going to be my primary. It's always going to be a corollary. Cool. So in my human design, I have a satisfaction, frustration, sort of responsiveness trigger. So if I feel satisfied, I am good with it. If I feel frustration, I know there's something I need to change about it. So I first of all listen to satisfaction, dissatisfaction, or frustration. And then secondarily, I am a emotional responder. So I listen to my gut, and I do. If my gut says don't go, I don't go. If my gut says tell somebody something, I tell them, even if it's not going to be good. If something turns me on, so again, we talked about having that second chakra kind of cut apart 3 times. 5 actually. And so for me to listen to my second chakra, when something turns my second chakra on now, I pay attention. Right. So it does. Yeah. So the gut response, so that it took me, I didn't allow myself to do that until I was 40, because by the time I had children, our family is made up of 3 type A personalities and 1 second child, like 3 first children, 1 second child. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody wants to direct the boat. And here I am going, okay, I also have 3 water signs and me a Taurus, and I'm the one holding everything together for everybody. So I've always had this whole, do I hold on to it? How hard do I hold on to it? Well, they zig and zag around me, right? It's my job to stick here. And sometimes I would say, you can't physically do that, but that's what the situation needs. And so I would do it. And I did that. I did that as long as it was needed. And I don't do it anymore unless it's absolutely necessary. And when it's necessary, you do it. Mm-hmm. Knowing the toll it's going to take, invoke your coping mechanisms and live, right? That's part of living. Nobody said I was going to have this uneventful, shiny, happy, unbumpy life,
yes,
right?
Yes. I mean, yes. And we want to be able to embrace all aspects of ourselves. That's our whole self. We don't want
to experience, right? Experience teaches us things.
Yeah. And it just is an experience. Okay, I'm experiencing this. Okay, thanks for being here. See you later. Some of them.
Yeah. And that's the flow process. Let it go through you, experience it, and then let it go. Let the next moment come in.
I love that you're bringing in the word flow. That's a perfect word that I haven't heard recently, and I'm just really glad you're bringing that into the space, because I think it's a perfect word for all of us to hear. So thank you for that. Let's see. I witnessed this. Okay. All right. Yeah. I witnessed this impactful event as having ignited a drive for you. And this is just on my bare minimum connecting that I've gotten to do, where I've really gotten to hear some of your story. So in doing with this impactful event, you wanted to find homeostasis, coming back into your authentic connection to yourself. So if you want to elaborate a little bit more now, what modalities did you study and utilize that led you to the therapeutic work you now do today? That's a big
So learning that I was altered and had to reestablish my flow. It was always about creating wholeness again after being altered. It's always about wholeness. The sum of the whole is greater than its parts, right? So I started attacking the parts. And attacking is probably the right. I was voraciously looking for different things that could help me. Mm-hmm. And I realized that in the process, some of the things seem very dissimilar. What does this have to do with this? Mm-hmm. But in truth, everything's connected. And so I found myself building a flower. I found myself learning about chakras, Ayurveda, astrology, 5 sense therapy, sound healing, light therapy, how to use your voice, Tesla and Mozart, how the music and the energy, frequency, vibration came into everything, color, how the color applies to the body, how light therapy helps with people, human design, proportion, fee, movement, tarot, how the art of appearance affects other people, how the brain works, how hormonal cascades are. I mean, I could go on. If I needed it, if I got a trigger, I looked into it. I have files of stuff that I have researched. And again, this is all coming from my wanting wholeness, my needing to find the information that can lead me to the next step to wholeness. And this is a journey. I was never going to find everything. And that's the thing I had to realize. I'm not going to find the whole picture, but I am on the journey to the steps. And I am so much higher of a level of wholeness than I was when I started.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm higher than I would have been if I hadn't been surgically altered.
Well, we don't know for sure.
No, we can't know. I like to look at it that way. I might not have looked into any of these things if I didn't need to.
Right. So what do you basically center on nowadays that is your key work that you offer to clients?
Okay, so there's 2 main components. I feel like it's important to know your blueprint. So you need to know your astrology. It's a guideline or a guidebook for you if you want one, right? I've had about 250 clients. I've not had one go, that doesn't make any sense. Until afterwards, when they're looking into it, like, I don't understand that, but they're not looking at it as a whole anymore. They're taking that piece out and going, what does that mean? So I want to create a whole with your astrology, teach you where the different things happen, the different energy frequency enters into your life. Now, no 2 people are the same. Even identical twins have different thoughts. They eat different foods. They go different places, right? I mean, so everybody has a little bit different way of looking about this. The astrology can help you with that blueprint to say, well, okay, there's 12 different houses, different containers that you live in, all sorts of stuff involved with that. It's unseen. It influences you anyway. People should know about that. But what you can't get away from is your physical DNA. your ancestors, your physical makeup of this meat suit that we wear in this lifetime. What's the vibration and frequency of your physical body, and how do you combine that with your astro, right? So my work is teaching people both of those things. I'm about finding, knowing, and being thyself. You can find out all the information about you as an individual and apply it. Find out all these little pieces. The more pieces you find, the better your flower is going to look. And your flower is going to look different than somebody else's flower.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
I may be a rose or a peony, right? And you may be a bird of paradise, right? So all these pieces put together don't look the same when you do it, but at least it helps you give a visual and a connection. And in this case, it gives you a synesthesia of the seen and the unseen.
Great way to put
so
it.
that you can live as a whole in this. So I love John O'Donohue so much. He's an Irish clergyman / poet / awesome guy. He's passed away now, but he talks about the clay and the stars, the stardust that comes down and animates your clay, and how there's a neon part of your soul that never gets seen by anybody, but you have to know it's there. And that neon part of the soul that he describes is what I'm talking about. You have to know that deep, intimate part of you is only for you. Nobody needs to see it, but you need to know it's there and how it works. And without understanding the unseen, you're never going to know about it.
Mm-hmm. I love looking at it as neon. That's neat. Which some people like to describe as the self, some people higher self. There's all different versions, but neon is fun because it gives it, I don't know, I can connect to it in a different way by seeing that. So I like that. Yeah, it's a nice thing to show.
Exactly.
The self-healing thread that I've noticed you following is the benefit of welcoming feelings of grief. How lovely the world can grow into when considering the option to stop fighting the circumstances of life. There is a deep spiritual value in understanding that everyone, all of us, are a mystery. I invite your thoughts on my witnessing of your healing journey that sprouted due to the hysterectomy at the age you were and the cultural times that it occurred.
After I had my hysterectomy, I was blessed to work with a Buddhist monk, and he taught me Shuddha Ayurveda. And I actually took refuge. I became a Buddhist. I am no longer Buddhist. I do not. But at the time, it felt like the thing to do. I absorbed myself in it completely. But honestly, it taught me about time, place, and circumstance. Which again is another way to say the present. So it taught me that it is what it is. This is what's happening now. This is what you had to deal with. The past is gone. The future hasn't happened yet. And I also love Joe Dispenza because he's always talking about I love him in so many ways, talking about how the brain interprets the past and the future, and the present moment's all you have. And then those elevated emotions that come with it. So the grief, I think of grief as a river. And it flows, and there's eddies that you can get stuck in, and there's ways to get out. You need a paddle to get out of that eddy. So go into the eddy, get caught in it, paddle out of it, get back in the river, right? We want to experience these depths. It's part of my version of dealing with the universe is that I like to think of it as a giant jellyfish. So the universe, ours, there's many of them, but it's up there pulsating up there like this, and it's got all these little strands coming down. And every strand is an individual human, and this side doesn't meet this side. They could be different countries. They never see each other. They never have the same perspective, but some of them get intertwined. Some of them stay intertwined. Some of them get divorced. Some of them have children. Some of them, stay mixed up in this little group, but all of them, that's an interaction that we have sort of within, without, but all of our above and below interactions feed back up to that superhuman universal jellyfish consciousness. And so every experience that we have feeds up and tells how that particular individual experienced that particular feeling of grief and what they did about it, how they managed with it. Yeah. And I like to think of it that way, because if I'm having grief, I need to remember I'm sending that information back up. What do I do with it? Did I get stuck with it? How long did it take me? They're just writing down information on it. So you go, okay, wait, how do I want to handle this? Do I want to get stuck in this? Is it possible to get out of it? But it gives you a perspective of sort of being way out here going, okay, if you were watching yourself go through this situation, how would you instruct yourself to do it? yes, some people could call it your higher self instructing you, but don't be so logical about it. Like, just step back and go, if I was watching Susie do this, what would I tell Susie to do? Right. Based upon, how I've managed it. And so it is what it is. And the present moment's a real thing. Eckhart Tolle is famous for it. Right. Deepak Chopra talks about, there's people that are more awake and aware know about the present moment, and really that's all there is. And when you bring the past into the present, you're kind of repeating the past, right? So, and if you're worried about it, you're in the future and it's not happening yet, so it's not helping you right now in the present. So leave it, experience it now, and then have that time, place, and circumstance to move forward, and just go with it. Flow with it.
I love the time, space, and circumstance. That's a
time, place. So what time is it? Is it, and that's the whole daylight. It's the whole physical 5 sense thing. Like, is it morning? Is it night? Are we supposed to be asleep? Or, what time is it? What is happening in that time? What is beneficial for that time period? Place. Am I in South America or Iceland? Right? It makes a difference. It makes a difference in how you dress, how you protect all the mechanisms that you use. And circumstances are, am I at a funeral or a wedding? Totally different experiences of emotions, right? Depends on who you are. If somebody's marrying your girl, you're going to be sad. If your grandfather of 108 passed away, you're going to be like, oh, I'm so glad he's in a better place. Yeah. Time, place, and circumstance comes into everything, and that's the present moment. And that's how you don't fight circumstances. You just, this is it. And it's not easy, and you got to keep reminding yourself. And
yes. And it doesn't have to be perfect in the moment.
Everybody messes up. That's right. Everybody.
We're just doing the best we can. All of us, each and every one of us, we're just doing the best we can each day. And the compassionate witnessing is a nice key for something like that. So stored trauma has a way of creating what you just spoke of, the repetition of the past over and over. It is like a magnet continuously recalling the same patterns, not released from your nervous system. Healing spaces can bring us into the present. Again, within your comfort level, please share how important creating a sacred healing space has become for you, your health, and your health especially.
Well, I am not sure how this happened, but I am lucky enough and had enough drive to create my own healthy home. I mean, I thought about what I wanted. I put it out there. I wrote about it all the time. I somehow manifested the ability to live in a healthy home. I got to design it. And again, I'm not the professional that did all these things. I love collaborating with other people. Yay. But I do like to kind of steer the boat. I didn't physically build my house, but I was here every day, and I could clarify anything that anybody needed. I did have a contractor that supervised the actual building, because I'm not a building professional. But I did feng shui. I got to use healthy materials. I have electric shutoffs. I have explored healing modalities for so long. I have healing equipment that I can step into it, and I can go outside, walk the paths in my moccasins and get grounded. I mean, I've been able to construct the things that I have run into over all of my studying and research and development and if I learn more, I keep adding it here.
Oh, that's great. That's so great. I just was so excited to just even hear everything about it. And it's pretty sustainable too, right?
So it's what they call a healthy home. I work with the Building Biology Institute, and they're the science of healthy houses. So I used a compound called Faswall, which is insulated concrete form. I didn't use anything in the home building that had toxins or VOCs, volatile organic compounds.
Yay.
And it took a lot of research, a lot of work. And honestly, 6 years ago when I was, getting all this stuff ready, it's a lot easier now and better now and easier to acquire things. Mm-hmm. And people are a little more educated with it. I had trouble finding a builder that wanted to even mess with this stuff. But, I had to drive the boat and learn how to. BBI helped me with that. I mean, at least there's a place to go where you can find that out. But the Faswall, we didn't. I don't have carpet in the house. I only have rugs that don't have any fire retardant sprayed on them. I have leather that doesn't have chromium. It's not tanned with chromium. I mean, things that I had to learn weren't weren't healthy for me. And again, this is because of my hysterectomy, because I became super sensitive to everything. Everything. Electricity.
Right.
Electricity I was highly EMF sensitive. I'm not anymore because I live in a space that my nervous system was allowed to calm down. I don't have to, but if I go to a mall, or I have to either take precautions and wear something, or but I have to come home and I have to detox from whatever it is. I have to get it out, or I have to replenish what was taken, or
Wow, I love it. It's just so nice to hear somebody go into that depth to create a sacred space for themselves like that. Like it's just nice to, again, create another awareness for those listening to how far we can go to truly, truly regulate our health and our emotions in the very best divine template way. So it's just nice to hear that you took that good of care of yourself, as a result of everything you've gone through. So that's great.
Well, it wasn't easy though, because my husband other people don't experience the same things you are. So it took quite a bit of chutzpah, so to speak, to say, okay, I'm moving to another state and we're still married and we still have a family life and we still have everything, but I'm doing this differently. You have to break the mold of doing things the way you used to. Once you learn, it's up to you. It's a choice. Everybody has free will, but there are things that are better than others. It's like, are you going to eat, a freshly grown salad from your greenhouse, or are you going to eat an Oreo? Right? I mean, there's just choices all the way along, and there's always a better choice. And finding that choice is not always easy. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Like for your physical, mental, emotional, all your health.
Well, I mean, I think you could put together a really fascinating book just from everything we've talked about already, through all the different aspects of your journey that would be supportive to many people out there. I mean, it's nice because everything that I'm hearing you speak of has more of a well-roundedness to it. And I love the completing of circles, and you really are tapping in to all the different arenas, like really understanding that there's so many different aspects of the home we live in that are so unsafe for us. So, to really put immersion into that, kudos to you.
But that's the wholeness principle. That's the astrology mixed with the physical. That's where are you at home with yourself? What is your identity? What career should you have? Like, this is where the map comes into helping you. That's where the safety comes. That's where the foundation comes. Mm-hmm. If you know what is going to be best for you. And again, you have to choose to believe. Astrology is an interpretive art of astronomy, right? So the stars are there, but the fact that somebody has decided to turn it into an art form of teaching you your journey for thousands and thousands of years, by the way.
Yes.
So it's the wholeness, but that's where the astrology comes in to give you a foundation and probably permission slip to do these things. Mm-hmm. It gives you the ability to say, okay, I am going to take this step, because even if it's not comfortable, it's in my best interest and it will become comfortable, which is important.
Yeah, just like I forget what it's called. It's not cartography. It's with astrology where people can help you figure out a good
astrocartography.
Astrocartography. Okay.
And I'm living, by the way, I didn't know this afterwards, but I am Venus oriented, and I am living. I chose a piece of land directly on my Venus line.
Wow,
like it doesn't get better than that. Like, so sometimes human nature will allow itself to gravitate to its highest and best without knowing or having an astro, in your gut when it's right.
Well, so just out of curiosity, when the rest of your family is there, how do they experience the place energetically? Do they tap into it and does it feel better to them?
It gets even better. So it's on my Venus line, but all three, I have 2 children and a husband. So all 3 of them have an aspect of their chart that's beneficial in this astro placement. That's so funny. In our case, it was highly beneficial for everyone.
So it's a great place for replenishment. I love it.
Well, they all get something different out of it, right? And I'm the one that gets the replenishment the most because of my Venus. But everybody, like my son can come and knock out a report. My daughter can come up with some great creative ideas, and my husband can come rest and recharge, right? Yes, but that's what they do. And so they come for it and they leave, whether they know it or not.
And it is that homeostasis. So according to the book Color Medicine, The Secrets of Color Vibrational Healing, color medicine is as old as recorded medicine itself. I just thought that was fascinating. Color medicine demonstrates how to improve or reverse the adverse or deficient energy in the body using appropriate, reinforcing, or counteracting colors or vibrations. Please share how being a color medicine practitioner has assisted with your healing from your hysterectomy at such an early age and onward to now. I realize that's a pretty expansive question, but
it's okay. So, referring to a color medicine practitioner. So I study color. I understand, and again, this is a modality issue. You can get 10 different definitions of color from 10 different books, right? So I have followed one flow. I'm in one river of color, basically. And using the color, I'll use the color for the same thing for everything, right? Whether I'm going to balance out your energy and in your heart space, and I want to increase it, and I want to give you some green, or I am helping your physical heart and by applying yellow to it, because so I study astrology. Astrology has a mix of colors that are attributed to the zodiac signs and the areas of the body.
Yes.
And so I apply my astrological knowledge of the colors to the physical body. So it doesn't matter what it is, the astro has an association to the body. So this is all about correspondences. Color healing has been happening forever, whether they use gemstones or use gemstones to charge water, to make colored water, or they had you eat specific colored foods or wear specific garments. It has been around. I mean, even in the Ayurveda stuff I was studying, it's beautiful and it's old.
I love it.
Yeah. So color is something light, sound, and color are the same thing. They're just different wavelengths of the same frequency, right? So it's just depending on how you use them, how dense the matter is, how the application is used, and what the person needs, what to balance. And do you balance? So it's like increases like, opposite decreases in kind. Same thing goes for color. So if something's out of balance, you either increase it or you decrease it, whichever one it's needed, or you treat it for the subject that it is and don't worry about if it is in or out, right?
Do you ever wear black?
Rarely. Black is a beautiful color for blocking things. For instance, I'm in a choir and we're required to wear black to our performances, which is fine by me because I'm not worried about anybody else's nervous energy because I'm wearing black. But I feel cut off from the light in black. And that's me personally. That's my, whatever synesthesia is, black is not my thing unless I want to feel protected. Sometimes I just don't have very much black in my wardrobe, but if I want to feel more grounded, say on an airplane or something like that, I'll wear a color next to my skin in black on the outside, which in an enclosed environment will help me not absorb what's going on. It'll absorb light, but not as much energy. And then it'll kind of keep my own energy, which is what that color underneath is doing next to my body.
Well, it is interesting because there's a lot of people that I see that only wear black.
And they're so cutting themselves off from the light frequency and the benefits of all the different colors. And but if you think about it, city people wear black. City people have so much bombarding energy that they need to protect themselves from it. And how do they express themselves? They buy super expensive handbags in beautiful colors. Right. So they'll express their color in some way, but they don't realize how compact and unaccessible it makes you.
Yeah.
But they do on one level, which is why they wear it. Because if they were accessible, then you could be hurt that way. Someone could suck you out. Someone could take what you have. Someone could, but you'll find the further away you get from a city, the more color people wear.
That's fascinating. I must start paying attention to that because I haven't ever even considered that, but it actually makes sense. They're able to let go and not be.
And the more rural you get, the more natural the colors get. You kind of tend to match your natural environment.
So more like the autumn tones and different things like that, and the greens and the browns and the yellows. Oh wow, that's very cool, Russ.
Or blues if you're near a beach, sandy colors and blues, neutrals, and
that's fascinating.
Yeah,
and it's probably so unconscious that they just
completely.
I love it. I love how we do have that innate organicness where we do attune ourselves without even knowing that we're doing something like that. So that's very cool. I'm going to pay attention now to that. So can you go into the detail of the 49th vibration technique so listeners can understand its value and key role in color medicine?
So yes, and it's a fun question because the 49th vibration is that visible spectrum of light. So it's in between infrared and ultraviolet. So it's what humans can see, basically. The color medicine, the secrets of vibrational healing, is based upon an Indian Eastern perspective of color. So it's not the one that I actually chose to swim in the river of. So his associations of colors to keys don't work with me. So I don't actually use the 49th vibrational technique that they put in there. However, the color spectrum is the same, and I do use that. So his technique has color harmony combined with cell salts, which are cell tissue salts. That's a whole other subject, but there's a correlation and correspondence of cell salts to the body with colors and zodiac astrology.
I haven't ever heard that. I mean, definitely had people talk about the cell salts, but never with the color and astrology. Wow.
Oh yeah, and I've got charts I can give you for that. Hydrochromatherapy is water therapy that they color with a certain gemstone or harmonic frequency, which could be a sound that you put into it, and they use astrological color rays on 13 specific areas of the body. So they combine these things. They give you a little physical with the cell salts. They use the astro sort of color ray therapy, and then they give you the color light therapy of whatever they're trying to treat. So you can treat the whole body. You can treat in a specific area. The vibration technique works. That's one of the oldest things that they've been using. And again, this is an Eastern way of applying it.
And what's the one that you follow? What's it called?
I follow the teachings of astrology. Judith Hill, medical astrology, is linked to that. Ani Williams does sound healing. Both of those modalities were the same ones that I was studying, which were in the river that I was swimming in. So I stayed with it. And each one allows a key associated with a color, a musical key associated with a color, associated with the zodiac sign, which gives all of those a hertz frequency which changes at different octaves and different. It's an in-depth science, but the point is that all of the energy, vibration, and frequency is quantifiable and able to be assigned and corresponded to something that can be healed.
Beautiful. So now with your hysterectomy, how soon did you get connected to color therapy after your hysterectomy? Was it like a decade later or sooner?
It was immediate because I had already been studying chakra. I was doing yoga when I was 30, so I knew about chakras and all that stuff. But once I learned that was where I was cut so many times, was the second chakra, I started experimenting with orange, which is the second chakra color.
Right.
And then it kind of led to different things. I don't like the color orange and I don't like the color yellow. Like, it's indicative of a personality trait to what colors you don't like. But then once I started studying, I was like, but I do, because I like peach and I like lemon yellow. I just don't like bright orange, right? But then I like eating oranges and I'll pay attention when I need the orange. And so it started me on how can I embrace orange, because I didn't like it. But my second chakra needed it balanced. And I'm like, then I started studying gemstones. And then I came up with carnelian. I would tape a carnelian on my second chakra.
Oh, yay.
And it would actually help. And then I would feel like it would run out. So then I learned how you could charge gemstones and put them in the sun and then do the process over again. And so every step of this led to something else.
Beautiful. Wow. I love it. I love it. So in terms of our need as a species to heal and digest fear, to ground ourselves and gain new perspective openings, how have you witnessed color medicine's therapeutic effect on healing and integrating fear?
Now, my favorite modality of color healing is light therapy. I have a friend, Linda Dutry, who's a psychologist, and she does an amazing therapy session with the colors associated with feelings, and it's associated with the vertebrae in your spine, and it's associated with a series of emotions that go along with it. Wow. And in my case, I kind of integrated those and combined them with the Ani Williams keys so ETT, I don't even emotional therapy technique. I think, I'm not sure what it exactly stands for. But in terms of fear can come from anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to notice where the fear is in your body, identify that part of the body, then you can treat it with that color. And so most of the time, if I had fear, it was in my yellow, my solar plexus chakra. I ruptured my spleen when I was a young girl. So for me, that's a weakness area. So for me, I should always be boosting with yellow. And if you listened to me earlier, I don't like yellow or orange. Yellow's the spleen chakra. Orange is, and so it's where I've been damaged that I have lesser affinity for the color. Now that doesn't mean I don't need it. Doesn't mean I don't need to balance with it. It just means I need to find out how to balance with the right version of that color. So for me, that whole fear thing is always going to come into those two areas because those are the weakest areas to enter my body.
It's interesting, isn't it?
So you'll feel where the fear is. You can associate it with the body part. And then light therapy is sight therapy, right? You're using your eyes to have this light absorbed into the body, which is the visual perception, which is how most people absorb light anyway. Yes, your skin absorbs light. We have all sorts of receptors all over our body. But the light therapy, if you don't have a practitioner leading you through it, the zodiac is associated with it. So for instance, I'm Libra rising, which is a Kelly green color, which is the key of F sharp. So if I will play some music in F sharp and use the Kelly green color, and I can look at the Kelly green color, I can wear the Kelly green color, I can drink the Kelly green color, that I put an emerald in my water in the sun, and you can absorb the color in many different ways.
I love it.
And fun. Yeah, so that's how you digest the fear, is by acknowledging it and by giving it what it needs. Like, it's like the monster under the bed. Until you say, "Hey, can I help you?"
Yeah,
he won't go away.
which is truly everything I'm learning about understanding our nervous systems. It's just really learning to nurture and love every aspect of ourselves, and just like a mother to a child. I almost feel like my nervous system feels like my twin me or something. It's been so neat to learn all about our nervous system and all the different ways that we can self-nurture it, and to do something like you're saying, like even to drink water that's got that color crystal in it. That's pretty basic. It's pretty easy for people to do. And most especially people that are going through grief, like just to have somebody come at that right moment when you've just been so slammed by something that really brings up heavy grief, to know that somebody can just bring over a sweater and put it on your shoulders, and you can somehow feel better because they've satiated just that absolute shock that's happened to your whole physical vessel. So I love, that's why I wanted to have you on. And thank you so much, because it's just so nice to get to access this kind of information, because that's so available to people when they're in grief.
So available. Sound, light, color, texture, all that stuff it's in everything that we're choosing to surround ourselves with. And that's why I say on, which is your clothing, in, which is what you eat. Like, it's important. The color of what you eat affects you. It does. And then around, like your surroundings, what you're looking at, what you're physically touching and seeing and surrounding yourself with, they all have a vibration and energy or frequency that can aid or detract.
Really hinder. Yeah. So part of your color medicine incorporates the medical astrology and sound. According to Chat AI, medical astrology, as you've somewhat already described, is a belief system that suggests a correlation between celestial bodies and human health. It is based on the idea that the position and movements of celestial bodies, such as planets and stars, can influence an individual's physical and mental well-being. According to medical astrology, each zodiac sign is associated with different body parts and systems. For instance, Aries is linked to the head, while Taurus is associated with the throat and neck. Astrologers may analyze a person's birth chart, which is essentially a map of the planets at their time of birth. Can you cite anecdotal examples you've encountered in which certain planets and their aspects either strengthened or weakened specific areas of a client's body? Of course, with this offering, it is always advised for clients to consult with qualified health practitioners and/or professionals.
So yes. So again, medical astrology is its own branch of astrology, just like astrocartography, just like relationship astrology. So I focus mostly on blueprint natal what you were born with, to get you to understand your blueprint. That's my groove. So I can do the other things, but I always rely on another professional who specializes in that to do it. So I use a medical astrologer because of all the stuff I had to do. Now, the medical astrology is very, very fun because you can go back in time and you can see exactly what happened, and you can go, oh my goodness, it's real, So yeah. So correspondences are key. It's the same influences and meanings and attributes that come with any other thing. So like Saturn's a disciplinarian. He's the father figure. He's the structure, right? So Saturn rules bones and stones. So if you get kidney stones, or you get a broken bone, or you have osteoporosis, it could be because something is aspecting your Saturn in your chart in a certain area of life. Now the houses, so say you had Saturn aspecting the moon's aspecting your Saturn in your 7th house of relationship. Well, you could break something while having sex, right? So, it's just, there's a correspondence with the actual planet that has its own affinity and qualities. Those qualities are associated with the human body, and there is a correspondence chart that you can go, okay, Aries is the head, Taurus is the neck. You go down the zodiac through the body. Mm-hmm. So you've got Gemini, which is the arms, you've got Leo, which is the heart, and then, it goes on. And I can give you a diagram of that. But everybody has like Libra in a different place. So Libra affects my identity, but Libra is my lower back and kidneys, right? Mm-hmm. So what happens when my identity is threatened? That's fear, right? Kidneys are fear, and they all have emotion affected. So maybe I need to make sure I'm hydrated in order for my kidneys to function well, in order for the fear to go away. Right. So, but if I get kidney stones, where's my Saturn affecting my, right? So you go, okay, this is where, and again, it's a skill, and it's a specific specialty that you can play with it, but I highly recommend seeing a professional who knows what they're talking about. But it is fun to do it in arrears. For instance, I twisted my ankle rather badly on August 12th of this year. And I had a medical astrologer. I do one every about 5 years since I've had my hysterectomy, because I like to know, what's going to affect me. What do I need to have on hand? And which minerals should I be supplementing with and stuff like that. So my medical guy had said, be careful of your ankles. And I don't write down dates because I don't want to think about it. I don't want to expect it. Right. Future hasn't happened yet. If it happens, I love to go, oh, look at that. But, so it turns out I twisted my ankle, and I went back to look on there, and in my astrology, it said there will be a strange twist in the morning.
Oh, and my gosh, that's
10
so
o'clock in the morning, I twisted my ankle. Just funny things like that.
Oh, I love it. That's great.
But they kind of reinforce what's happening, and it's the energy of what's happening, the light, the frequency, where the tensions and the benefits and the placement of everything are. And that's why astrology is so fun and interesting, because it can give you the guidebook for that. Whether you believe in it or not, it can still give you a set of parameters that you can at least have the free will to choose if they affect you or not.
Guideposts. Well, it's funny because I read probably 2/3 of the medical astrology book, and of course want to go into it much more in depth.
Which one did you read?
The older one by I'm not going to be able to think of her name. That blue one that's like.
Okay, I got that one too. Eileen, I can't remember her name.
I know. I'm drawing a blank too. I can see the book, of course. I can always do that. But
you got that in conjunction with Ani Williams, which is a sound healing, which combines medical astrology with the sound healing. Right.
Yeah. So, it was interesting to get to go into it and look back over my different health issues and go, they were definitely telling me. It was definitely, I had so many of the different, luckily I feel like I've got just an unbelievably healthy body. I'm so graced. But one of the things I did have was my thyroid out when I was in my 20s, and that definitely affects you for the rest of your life. It's
absolutely, it's an endocrine organ. Yeah. The cascade is affected. You have to balance it back out and honor it.
And truthfully, I can say, and now I want to go into this in more depth, what we've talked about today, I haven't conquered it. I really, not conquered, but that's not the right word, but embraced it and brought balance to it.
Well, but let's think about this. Where's the thyroid? The thyroid's at the throat. The throat chakra is Taurus, and it's got kind of a greenish turquoise here because it's between the green of the heart and the indigo of the third eye. So you've got this turquoise color. So have you thought of drinking turquoise? Have you thought of putting the key of C sharp, which is Taurus, on your throat? Have you, these are where these modalities come in. If you want to take it further, there's ways for you to do it.
Cool. That's exactly the kind of things I was asking by this question. That's beautiful, because I really,
like a turquoise necklace.
I mean, all they do in the medical world is keep doing these same little lab tests, which tell nothing, but if I really pay attention to my health, and I had it young, very young, like, in my 20s, and it was very quick. And it just, if I really pay attention, it has, phased me, throughout my life. Really.
Of course it has. And that's just one piece of the whole, right? So it affects other parts of the whole, and then your sum gets off, right? You can't be whole. Because
right.
And so we're always looking to heal these little pieces. And some of these little old remedies of simple things that are available to you can really help you create wholeness in that piece.
Well, and it's just
much less the whole.
To find out that it's one of the oldest medicines that's around. I mean, I just love that we have these things that are.
Well, but think about it. It was available. Light is available. Color is abundant in our atmosphere. I mean, they used what they had, and it worked.
Yeah. Can you imagine the first person that really started bringing that forward? Yeah, that had to be so cool. So how did medical astrology incorporating the use of sound and music therapy manifest assistance with the healing and grief and restoration of clients or yourself's body over time for yourself and your clients? How did medical astrology and sound and music come together for you?
Again, I don't like to be predictive about medical astrology. So I don't look into the future and go, this could happen. Mm-hmm. But with having medical and the ability to go backwards and say, okay, I understand why this happened. It's a knowing, and yes, you have to believe it. You have to buy into it. But knowing that that's a set of astrological circumstances that existed when that happened allows you to accept it, experience it, and move on. Mm-hmm. It's again another permission slip. You're like, oh, that wasn't awesome, and that was, but I understand why that happened. So therefore, what can I do for it now, and how can I just move on to the next step of what's happening? Again, experiencing what it was that I had happen, but also letting it go because I understood it. Maybe it was inevitable. Maybe it was outside of my control. Maybe shit happens, right? So it's just embracing that.
That's
you
flow.
Can move on. It also builds an awareness of what's happening in the sky. It allows you to notice, hey, it's winter. I might be colder. Maybe my bones are a little more brittle right now. It's connecting you back to what is the sky and the earth and how they're interacting in that particular time, place, and circumstance. Like, these things happen to get your attention, because if you don't need that attention brought, it's not going to happen unless circumstances are perfect. And then it does. And then you're like, okay, what do I need to know? How do I need to handle it? What can I move forward with?
Cool. Very cool. So I'm just going to ask you these fun questions because I just think I just thought they were fun. So please complete this sentence. I like that I've done that. And what is that for you? I love that I had no idea how I was going to build my dream house. And I ended up building it in the place that was the most beneficial that it could be. And I live here healthfully, happily, and wholly. I love it. That feels good. Doesn't it feel good? Just even it does. All aspects of it. I mean, it's just so precious. What do you wish to adjust as you proceed further into your self-healing? And this is for everybody, but I've been told my whole life, you don't have to do anything. You just have to be. Just be yourself. And I've always been like, that's not enough. So guess what? What do I have to do? What do I have to research? What do I have to find out? And so my answer is, I wish to proceed with the knowledge that what I know now is good enough. It's going to help somebody with something, and that I will continue to be enough and be what I'm supposed to bring to the world with my authentic pattern. And that's what I wish to proceed with going forward. Just being. I love it. So, which is being in the present, which is being in the flow. It's all the same things you talked about at the beginning of the interview. That's cute. It's fun just to watch how you're giggling along with it, because it's funny when you ask these kind of questions, how much it taps into something, and you're like, oh, okay, it's good to hear right now. I love it. So, what do you have hope for in terms of color, sound, and music therapy? It's a biggie.
Well, if it was up to, so I've got a design of something I would love to put out there, but I think that there needs to be vibration frequency energy healing centers where you go and you get identified with your astrological chart, and they walk you through the modalities. We find out where you're deficient or where you have an excess. We can balance you back out again. Plus, we can give you all the therapies. We can give you 5 sense therapies to deal with on Earth. We can give you mental, emotional therapies. We can give you the touch therapies that you need. You can have a massage therapist, or all the modalities of healing that exist between color, light, sound in the same place. And you would be able to buy, the color food that you need, and the clothing that's perfect, and the jewelry that's beneficial to the right area of the body. That's going to give you the energy, frequency, vibration that you need. I think that it would be great to pull all those things into one place, and as a collaboration, let the professionals of each specific area do their thing and help the person with whatever's needed.
Well, I also want to mention that you've been a jeweler for 20 years, so too. I have made
27.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. It's so beautiful. It's such, I remember meeting somebody a long time ago, and they traveled all over the United States in an RV before anybody talked about RVs, and collected gemstones from all over the United States.
Oh, that's awesome.
And she used it to make her own jewelry. And I was like, please let me go with you. You won't know I'm there. Because it was like, oh my God, that's so fun.
It's so fun. And there's so many places. So rocks actually, I have an affinity with the earth. I have an earth element affinity. And I have an astrological Saturn construct that allows me to sort of communicate with them, if you will. But I can feel a gemstone and feel a gemstone for a person or specific. Wow. And again, it's the same thing. It's the energy and frequency of the stone. It's what the minerals are comprised of, and the heat that they were comprised under. And there's so many things about it. But yeah, gemstones are a love of mine, and they always have been, and it's never going to go away. But I have an affinity for naturally mined. You can kind of feel when something's not done well. So I have headed my jewelry practice into conscious mining, and it's becoming better. It's becoming more prevalent that people are aware of what's happening when a stone is mined and harvested, and what it does to the earth, what it does to the people doing it. I think that, just like any meat you would eat, the same thing goes into the gemstone that you would wear. There's a process that goes to it, and the access of it, and the treatment of it, and
That's great. I mean, it just makes me that much more excited too for any of your clients, because to know that they're getting consciously mined gemstones is just, cat's meow as far as I'm concerned, with everything else you've already talked about. All right, last question. How does having these skills give you hope, and what does it give you hope for?
Well, if I have them, other people can have them. So I also think, and I know this for sure, that you can develop these senses. Even if you don't have the gift of instant access to them, all of these color, frequency, light, sound, therapy, they can be learned, they can be taught, they can be experienced, they can be shared with others, they can be done to help if you understand it. Like, I can help my whole family by playing the right music, and they don't even know it, right? Mm-hmm. So one person at a time, one situation at a time. I'm hoping for a butterfly effect. I'm hoping for you to understand that when you wear green and feel great, people compliment you and tell you how pretty your eyes are, then you're in a good mood. You smile at them, they smile at somebody else, and then they pick the green sweater out of their closet the next day, and they don't know why, right?
The domino effect. I love it. That's a beautiful ending. So your career path is a unique combination of astrologer, artist, and advisor. And you have shared beautifully today how the deactivation of your nervous system brought on your most impactful experience of grief. Because of it, you have mentored how your connection to your resilience, expansion, adaptability, and mystic, hopeful sense of possibility has led to your greater physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health that you now enjoy immensely today. Like Jennifer, all people have the capacity for self-healing and self-leadership. The human spirit is about the resilience of humanity, moving onward through purpose, passion, connection, hope, love, and wellness to that restored place that already exists within each of us, the refocusing from brokenness to wholeness and remembering it in the knowing part of us is our pure creation essence at work. Thank you ever so much, Jennifer, for your courage and willingness to bring forth your heartwarming share and heroic efforts, continuously guiding you on your self-healing and self-leadership path of glory. It was absolutely a pleasure. And if you want to share your website or any upcoming events, you may share those now.
Well, again, thank you. I'm so honored to be here. And my website is stoneangelstudios.com and at Stone Angel Studios on Instagram. And I have at Genopause if you want to learn more about menopause. The funny part about Genopause is I did it because there were so many Jennifers turning into menopausal age because it was the most popular name. That's why it's called Genopause.
That's hysterical. I love that idea.
So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It was my pleasure and my honor.
Thank you. Love it.